afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Democratic View, and my name is Phyllis Italiano, and here with me today is a local guy, born, raised, and really has had tremendous influence on our area, our Congressman Tim Bishop.
Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's my pleasure. I love having you on. I love to tell people about some of the things that you have told me about your early years on the potato farm. Would you like to mention that a little bit?
Yeah, my mother was born in Sagaponack, and her grandparents were potato farmers, as were her grandparents and her parents. And so in my early adolescence, when I was 11, 12, 13, 14, I worked at the farm. And we helped, we worked, my older brother, my younger brother, and I worked on the potato digger. And you started harvesting potatoes sometime in mid-August, and we would, generally work after school or in the summer, and then after school and on weekends. And we loved it. We thought we were the luckiest kids alive. We would be out in those fields at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. And it was just, I absolutely loved it, and as did my siblings. And it was a great experience to be able to spend that time with my grandfather, but also to, it really is, farming is an enormous part of our heritage as Eastern Long Islanders. And to be a part of that, to have that be part of my lineage is something that I'm very proud of.
I know. I remember when I first came out to the East End in Jamesport in the early 50s when I was a mere slip of a girl. I mean, there was nothing but farms.
Yeah.
It was farm after farm after farm. And now, of course, it's not quite
Well, Suffolk County is still the largest agricultural producing county in the state of New York. Little known fact, but still is. Although, as you say, we are far less committed to farming than was the case in the 50s and in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up. My grandparents lived on Hedges Lane, and you used to be able to sit on their front porch and see the ocean. Now that's impossible now because of all the homes between Hedges Lane and the ocean. But truly, there was nothing but potato fields from Hedges Lane to the dunes.
We have, now that summer is coming to a close, we have gone through really quite a tough summer out here, trying to balance between, the economy and keeping things going and all of our tourism, which is very important to us also. But in the meantime, there is also the quality of our lives and, of course, our environment. As a matter of fact, I always quote you because you were the guy who first said to me, our environment is our economy and our economy is our environment. And I think that's so important. Some of our issues that we are facing in our local area right now is trying to preserve some of that land. And of course, wastewater is another big issue. We had an open hearing yesterday on our scab waste situation. Very complex issues.
All of them are complex issues. And I would say that for the east end of Long Island, the environmental imperatives are the ones that you've mentioned: preservation of open space, protection of water quality, both surface water and groundwater, and I would also say stabilization of our shoreline. Those are three enormously important environmental priorities. I think we are doing a pretty good job, thanks primarily to the legislation that Fred Thiel and Ken Laval pushed through to create the real estate transfer tax that funds the Community Preservation Fund. I mean, that has been an enormous benefit in terms of giving local government the resources necessary to purchase either the development rights to farmland or to purchase open space and keep it open in perpetuity. The other issue, the wastewater, the water quality, very difficult, very expensive, and it's been one of the things that I've been working on a lot in Congress. I'm the senior Democrat on what's called the Water Resources and Environment Subcommittee of the Transportation Committee, and one of the areas that I've focused on is wastewater infrastructure. We have an enormous backlog of need in this country, well over $300 billion worth of backlog of need in terms of constructing and maintaining appropriate wastewater infrastructure facilities. We have very little of it here on eastern Long Island. Only roughly 30% of Long Island is sewered. 70%, goes right into the ground, and that has an impact on water quality, has an impact on the ability for communities to expand. And so I'm the author of legislation, bipartisan legislation, that would rekindle a federal investment that would assist local communities in dealing with their water infrastructure needs. And it would take sort of what we are calling a toolbox approach. It increases the federal investment from where it is now, which is woefully inadequate, it would take it from roughly $690 million a year to roughly $2.8 billion a year in investment in wastewater infrastructure. It would also create a wastewater infrastructure trust fund the proceeds of which would be specifically designated for wastewater infrastructure projects. And it also would allow for basically direct lending from the Treasury to support projects that are deemed appropriate to go forward. So it would be of an enormous help to local government in dealing with a really, really serious problem. It has great environmental benefit, but it also has great economic benefit in terms of the jobs that would be created in constructing this infrastructure, but also allowing for appropriate economic expansion because you would be comfortable or confident that the waste would be treated appropriately. So I'm working hard at getting it pushed. As I say, it has bipartisan support, and whether in this Congress or the next Congress we can get some movement on it, that would be great.
One of the things I personally would love to see happen is I know I have a cesspool septic system, something. I have no idea what it is. I didn't build my house. I bought it, like a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. And I listened to all of this talk about the nitrogenous waste and how we could control it. And yet I find that if I were to replace my septic system with something that would be, state of the art, it would cost me $20,000. Right. $20,000 is a little bit beyond my present means on a retirement salary.
Yeah. What we need to do is increase our municipal sewage treatment capacity. I mean, there are very few sewage treatment plants on eastern Long Island. I'm only aware of one, for example, in the town of Southampton. That's the one that Southampton Hospital owns and operates. So what my legislation would do would be to give to local communities the financial ability to construct municipal wastewater treatment facilities, and then that would allow us to reduce our reliance on cesspools and move in a direction of a more sort of comprehensive means of treating our waste. And as I say, I'm hopeful we can get this done.
Okay, all right. So another one of the areas that we're also very interested in is energy and producing. I just was on my way driving here. They were talking about this. Something that I've always wondered why we never used wave action for energy, and they're now doing it in Oregon.
Yes.
They are putting in something there that the waves are going by the bouncing are going to produce energy.
Yeah, I think here, again, on eastern Long Island, we are particularly well situated, whether it be wave energy, tidal energy, wind power, we are solar power. We are particularly well situated to make the kind of advances in a clean energy future that we need, frankly, to do nationally. But we have a lot of alternatives available to us here. There's now, for example, a huge solar array operating at Brookhaven National Laboratory, which is something that I think is very good. There are several different proposals for offshore wind farms, and I think they all deserve serious consideration. That's not to say that there aren't problems associated with the proposals, but I think the problems are ones that can be worked through. So we have to look at that, and with the technology that's now available to harness tidal energy, again, something we should be looking at. But our future has to be wrapped up in a clean energy future, that we have to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and increase our reliance on clean and renewable sources of energy.
As a matter of fact, all of those things you were talking about are going to employ many people.
Indeed, they are. Actually, I mean, one of the things that's an issue in Congress right now, and frankly, a relatively obscure issue in the presidential election, is whether we continue tax credits for wind power. And Governor Romney's taken the position that absolutely not, that he would not support them. President Obama supports them. There's a couple 100,000 jobs wrapped up just in that one decision. Do we or do we not continue tax credits for wind power? To me, it's a no-brainer. It's the kind of energy we need, plus we need the jobs.
Yes, it's like someone once, you know, and when he passed that new law where, you know, cars have to do better on mileage, you know, somebody said, you know how many jobs that's going to produce, where people have to, first of all, come up with the technology, and then from the technology, then to put it into action. All of those means jobs also.
Means jobs, but it also means a cleaner environment. It means reduced reliance on foreign oil. It means reducing our carbon footprint. So there's a lot of advantages to improving minimum fuel efficiency standards. And again, I think the president is to be commended for the leadership he's shown in that area. And Detroit and the automakers are to be commended for their willingness to go along.
Yes. Yes, well, we all know that, thank God, Detroit still exists.
Thank God it does. And, you know, again, there's a real point of difference between the president and Governor Romney. I mean, the Governor Romney has quite publicly said that he would not have supported what he referred to as the auto bailout. Well, you know, there's direct and indirect, there's about 2 million jobs in this country tied up in the automobile industry, and those jobs, a great many of them would have gone away had we allowed General Motors and Chrysler to just die. And I mean, I supported the intervention that kept them alive. I'm glad that the majority of my colleagues did as well, because right now they're both thriving.
Yes, and that is, I mean, to have lost the thing that we created, that we invented, and see it gone would have been just a terrible tragedy. And I just would also like to talk about education, because, you know, being an educator, just like you, I also was very heartened by his speech, acceptance speech last night, talking about early childhood too. Because, you know, there's always the emphasis on math and science. And I always yell out whenever I hear it, yell at the TV, but first they have to read. And that is so key. And early childhood is so important. And I'm hoping, I know your wife is even in early childhood.
My wife's an early childhood specialist. She's at her own program that she started, 35 years ago, and it's still going strong. But the focus on early childhood is one that we cannot lose sight of. If you ask any K through 12 educator, what's the single most important thing we could do to improve the high school graduation rate, their response will be early childhood, early childhood, early childhood. That it is crucial, and it's one of the reasons why I find it so dispiriting that the budget that Congressman Ryan has put forward, that Governor Romney supports, and that my opponent, Randy Altshuler, supports, would cut 200,000 kids out of eligibility for Head Start. Now, these are kids that are very, very reachable. Head Start, there's a lot of studies that show that Head Start actually works. It helps students progress, and you know, it just stands to reason that if you want students to finish right, you got to get them started right. And Head Start's one of the ways to do that. And to take 200,000 kids and render them ineligible for Head Start is both short-sighted and just fundamentally wrong if we are going to develop the kind of educated workforce that we need.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there is nothing that you can do practically in the workforce in these days where you don't need skills.
Right.
Skills you have to have. I mean, who works anywhere without a computer? You know, and we're all doing those kinds of things, and we have to make sure that our kids get those skills.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to hear that. I'm a little bit concerned about the people on the flip side of us, because I don't understand where their heads are coming from. I really don't. Are they just so unable to understand that this is a world where, you know, you are not alone. You're in it with other people, and we all have to work together. There's no such thing as you're going to make it on your own. You have to work. There's no doubt about it. You have to get educated. You do have to strive for things, but there are also all of those little things that you get along the way, like Pell Grants. All my children had Pell Grants to go to college. You know, I couldn't have afforded to put them through.
Yeah, Pell Grants is another area that is imperiled. Again, the budget that, you know, Congressman Ryan has proposed, that my opponent says that he supports, would cut the Pell Grant by $104 billion over 10 years. It would also raise the student loan interest rate from 3.4% to 6.8%. It would eliminate a tax credit that families that make up to, I think it's $160,000 or $170,000 a year can get as a cushion against their tuition charge. So these are three areas that are really essential to maintaining access and affordability for people of promise to higher education. That, as I say, you know, Congressman Ryan, my opponent Randy Altshuler would have us back away from, and I don't see how we remain competitive in an intensely challenging global marketplace without having an educated workforce. And access to higher education and access to post-secondary training is absolutely essential to having that workforce. And if we pull back this funding, tens of thousands of young men and women who have the capability and the willingness to work hard in order to succeed will never be given that opportunity. And that's just, for our country, that's wrong. Leave aside the individuals and the lost hopes that they might have. For our country, it's wrong. It's counterproductive to our need to remain competitive.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wish they would understand this. It seems so fundamental, and it bewilders me that people are not able to understand that, you know, we have to have good education in order to have jobs.
I mean, you know, I think we need to keep our focus on investing in education, investing in infrastructure, and investing in innovation and scientific advancement. Those are three areas that are absolutely essential to our future competitiveness, and they're absolutely essential to job creation in this country. And what I find so dispiriting is that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle talk constantly about job creation, as well we all should. Job creation is extremely important, yet they would deprive the country of the tools that we need in order to allow for the very job creation that we must have.
Yes, and we all do realize that there is this huge deficit, which of course they created. I mean, you have two wars that you never even budgeted for, and there is this huge deficit, and we all know that we need to be able to, somehow or other, come up with solutions to paying it down.
There's no question we have to close our deficit, no question about it. How we go about doing that is the great challenge that lies before all of us. I mean, it's very, very easy to say cut spending, but when you start to look at where we spend our money and you tell people that what's involved in cutting that spending, they begin to say, wait a second, that's not what I have in mind. It's very, very easy to say, as you know, that we can't possibly increase revenue. But when you look at the obligations that we have, when you look at how we spend the money that we currently spend, and then say that we absolutely have to continue to do those things, but we can't take in any new revenue, the math just doesn't work. So we have to We have to set aside slogans. We have to set aside signing pledges. My opponent, for example, has signed the Grover Norquist no new tax pledge. We have to set aside all of these sort of hot button issues and come together as reasonable people and figure out how to get this done and do it in a way that inflicts the least pain, and that the pain
Right.
we do inflict, we inflict on those that are most able to accommodate it. And that's not easy. It's going to be a real challenge, and it's particularly going to be a challenge in the kind of hyper-partisan environment that we're all living in now. But it's something that we absolutely have to do.
It really amazes me that that people of the middle class, particularly some of the people who are the workers, I mean, real workers, work with hands and things like that, are the kind of people that don't want to raise taxes on the 1% or 0.01%, some of them are. That absolutely floors me, because I can't understand why they would have this desire to see these people go on.
Well, I think, just a fundamental reality that we all have to recognize, that the math just doesn't work. If we are going to maintain our commitment to seniors, if we are going to maintain our commitment to a strong national defense, if we are going to maintain our commitment to our nation's veterans, all of those things are imperiled if we are going to take the position that we can't bring in any additional revenue. And so we just, what I do is, what I believe is, when people see the numbers, I believe that reasonable people make good judgments when they're presented with accurate information. So one of the things I've been doing as I go around and talk to groups is I tell them, I give them the numbers. I tell them where the money comes from, where the money goes, what current programs or current obligations we have are. And then people start to think, well, wait a second, this isn't as easy as I thought it was. And I think that's the kind of discussion we need to have. Frankly, it's the kind of discussion my colleagues need to have, because a great many of them don't focus on where the money goes.
Yes. It was interesting that the Star had a front page article a couple of weeks ago that said that Auschwitz was beating you in the polls. And then this week or the following week, on the page 13 was a little thing that said, oh, that was, by the way, his poll.
Yeah, he did a poll that was, the polling methodology has been roundly discredited. It's not a useful or reliable polling instrument the way it's done. Poll showed him up, I think, a couple of points. We've done several polls, and an independent poll has been done that all shows me to have, at least at this point in the race, a double-digit lead. We're going to work hard at trying to maintain that lead. I think this is going to be a very close race, and it's going to be one that will go right up to Election Day. But at least at this point, in terms of the polling that I've seen, I'd rather be where I am than where he is.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm going to continue to work for you,
Right,
that's
thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank you.
And I do want to also mention that, I know you were on East End Veterans, and Joe Giannini, who is
Yes.
the lead guy, told me to mention that you were the guy who helped him when he had to have claims because he has hearing aids
Yes.
from Vietnam and all of that sort of thing, that you were the one who helped him.
Well, we're delighted to help Joe, and I am very, very proud of the service that my office has provided to our constituents. We have helped over 15,000 of our constituents get to the right answer, get them the assistance that they need, solve the problem they presented us with, cut the red tape that needed to be cut. We've done that, as I said, successfully for over 15,000 of our constituents. I'm delighted that Joe was one of them, and he's a good man and served his country quite honorably and quite well, and I'm glad we were able to help.
Yes, I know you've also helped my daughters when they were looking for jobs
Yes.
out here as teachers.
Yes.
I did have that in my letter
Yes.
this week to the Star. Well, I do know that you are a product of our area. You are a man who knows our issues, who is aware of the development of of Long Island and the East End, and all of the kinds of things that we need to keep us at having the quality of environment and health that we have now. And I know the other guy is somebody who, what in the old days we would call a carpetbagger.
Well, he just moved here I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He does not have the connection to this area that I have. You know, on my father's side, his ancestors came here. My ancestors came here in the 1600s. So I'm a member of the 12th generation of my family on my father's side to live in the village of Southampton. I'm very proud of that, and it has given to me a love for our area, for our heritage, and for my fellow Long Islanders. And so it is a real honor for me to have the opportunity to represent them, and I think I'm well positioned to represent them because I am one of them. I mean, I am of this area and have always been and shall always be.
And you have no idea how I envy you and wish I could say that I was from this area instead of the Bronx. You know?
There's nothing wrong with the Bronx.
No, there's nothing wrong with the Bronx, but you know, I am so madly in love with East Hampton and Long Island.
Well, we're very lucky. We're very lucky to live here, and I think because we're lucky to live here, it also imposes on us an obligation to see to it that we help maintain a quality of life that brings people here and keeps people here.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I wish you such good luck. And I know that your wife and your daughter, and you've got this lovely little grandchild now.
Yes, I'm a lucky man.
Well, we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
And we're going to continue to work very hard to make sure that we keep you, because I know that you're an honorable man as well.
Thank you.
As a hard-working guy.
I am an honorable man, and I am a hard-working man, and I thank you for saying that.
Yes, well, that's good. Well, thank you again for coming, and I can't wait to see the show on the air.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Phyllis.
so-
Thank you. Okay.